Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you've decided to view this today. If you've decided to have a wee lie in or you're up quite late. Right, so we are moving on now to the second last topic. So this topic is called people. It's quite a small topic in comparison to the others, and we'll get through it quite quickly. The only other unit still remaining is our marketing unit, which is quite bitty. There's quite a lot to it, but we will finish that hopefully when we are back in school. Okay, so people, the functional area of a business would normally be called human resources, so the human resources department, and it is, in a nutshell, managing people within the organisation. So the main duties are recruiting, training, developing and maintaining a good workforce, a strong workforce, so the business can meet its objectives. The process that we're going to look at today is recruitment and selection. Now, recruitment and selection, there are several stages to the whole process. It is split into two, and we shouldn't regard recruitment and selection as one. They are two different activities. Recruiting employees with the correct skills can add value to a business. The recruitment and selection process can be carried out as follows. So here are the 4 steps to the recruitment process. First one is a job analysis. Then we do a job description, person specification, and then we finally advertise the job. Preparing a job analysis. So during this stage, so this is the initial stage, we're finding out if a job is needed. So we're looking at our organisation and identifying if there's any gaps in our workforce where we may need a new member of staff. We find out where the job will be, so what area of the business is the job required for. What does the job involve? So just a general overview at this stage. We also consider whether the job can maybe be shared out amongst other employees instead. So the duties of that role being given to other people who already work in the organisation, rather than just keeping it to a brand new member of staff. Remember, every new member of staff costs us a new wage bill, so we'll increase our expenses, and we all know when we increase our expenses, we decrease that profit for the year. Times in which job analysis can be done, it can be done throughout the business year. Some businesses stick to seasonal times. If you look at Primark, for example, they'll look at September as a time where they do a job analysis, mainly because employees who've been working over the summer months are typically those who are school leavers or who have been working in a part-time job and now they're going off to college or university or off to an apprenticeship or another position. You also think about when a business might be a bit more busy. You think about the lead up to Christmas. A lot of temporarily, if I can pronounce it correctly, jobs are available in an organisation just to keep up with that demand. Second part, we prepare a job description. So this lists all the duties that are involved in the job role, including its title, the duties, responsibilities, how much we're going to pay them, who their line manager will be, so who do they report to, who's in charge of them, and what location. So for example, if there are several different stores or different offices, which one are they going to be based at? The job description will also act as a good anchor for our job advert later on, to let the candidate know what would be expected of them if they were to do this job. So what are the typical day-to-day like activities that they would be involved in. Okay, so number 3 is where we prepare a person specification, and this outlines the qualifications that the candidate must have in order for them to do the job. It also dictates the qualities we would be looking for in a person for them to carry out the job as required. Those will be separated into 2 different categories: essential and desirable. Essential being they must have them in order for them to apply for this position. Desirable is it would be an added bonus if they had them. Now those desirable elements would come into practice when we are deciding between candidates. If we had quite strong candidates who have got the essential qualities, who've got the qualifications there, we can then separate them if they had those desirable qualities as well. Number 4, we advertise the job vacancy, so we decide on how to inform potential candidates that there is a position to be filled. We can do this in several different ways. The next lesson we're going to look at internal and external recruitment, which will make it a bit more clear to you. But if you think about where you have seen a job advert yourself, they're available on the company website, now on social media pages. They can sometimes be advertised inside the organisation on a simple thing such as a notice board. We can also look at advertising the job vacancy through third parties such as the job centre or companies such as Indeed. Now when we advertise that job vacancy, we will post up something quite eye-catching, or at least something to gain the interest of potential candidates. We would also include that job specification, that job description and that person specification as well. The next process, the next part of this process is the selection process, and this is when we are now deciding on a potential candidate. Now the selection process is part of the bigger picture, so it's part of recruitment and selection, but please try not to get the two confused. Quite often candidates regard it as the recruitment process and include 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 within that. Remember, it is divided up into 2 different sections: recruitment and then selection. So, quick rundown. Selection, we are receiving CVs, application forms. We are then shortlisting the candidates, so finding the best candidates from those CVs and application forms to then ask them for an interview or provide them with testing, so we can test a candidate to see if they are, as they say they are, an adequate candidate for the position. Once we have then looked at all of this, we'll offer them the position. That offer of position would usually be on the agreement of reference checks, and I'll come to that in a second. So the selection process: receive CV job applications. Now a CV is prepared by the candidate themselves. They usually follow some form of template, but usually you'll find every CV is different. It will have different information on it. Some will be quite short and to the point, some will be quite lengthy, some will have aspects on their CV which others don't. A CV usually and should have, first of all, your name on there and your contact details, a short introduction as to why you would like the position, so a personal statement as such, your education history, so your qualifications, any training you've done or any courses you've been on, your work history, so who is your current employer, who did you work at before, and within that it's really crucial that you dictate the job, the duties that you've done within that job, mainly because the person looking at this CV can maybe find similarities to the job that you're applying for. Some candidates as well like to include things such as their hobbies and interests to show that they've got a bit more of a personality, or trying to portray their personality to the person who is looking at their CV. A job application is a very straightforward form which is made readily available to potential candidates, where they fill it in. Now, with a job application, you can only answer the questions which are on the job application. There's no room to add in extra things. A job application is quite easy for the recruiter to determine who is the best candidate by comparing job applications like for like, whereas a CV, because they are very different in content, it's quite hard to make that full comparison. Application forms collect relevant specific information from candidates. Candidates answer the same questions. So again, makes it very easy for us to compare. Once we have sifted through the CVs and application forms, so they've come into the organisation, we've looked through them, we've separated them probably into different piles, yes, maybe, no. Usually a recruiter will receive thousands upon thousands of CVs or application forms. That is why it is crucial, and this is good advice for you for the future, it is crucial that your CV or your application form stands out from the rest, just to alert the recruiter, because they'll be seeing the same kind of content time and time again. Once they've sorted it into piles, they'll usually have a yes pile where they can shortlist candidates. That these are applicants that best match the requirements of the person specification, and they are then put onto a shortlist. Okay, so we would have the person specification in front of us, and we'd be linking it to their CV or linking it to the application form that they have submitted. Number 8. Usually when we have shortlisted the candidates, we will then contact them for interview. An interview is a two-way process. An interview can be done one-to-one, it can be done through a panel where several recruiters are interviewing you, or a group question and answer session with the employer where there are several candidates in the room who are all almost competing for that position. Interviews don't always have to be face-to-face. Face-to-face is brilliant because we get to see body language, we get to see if they're slumped in their chair, or they've got their tie all wonky, or they haven't made any kind of effort for presentation. We can also look at their eye contact and their mannerisms a lot easier. Whereas we could also use things such as telephone interviews, which are still a thing that some recruiters opt for, mainly because it saves on candidates having to travel into the organisation. With that, we're still getting to hear their tone of voice. However, we aren't getting to see that body language, or getting to see their mannerisms, or how they present themselves in a formal environment. And if you think right now, probably one of the most important ways in which we can conduct interviews is by using technology such as this. So using Zoom technology, using Microsoft Teams, where we're hosting meetings, where we're still getting to see that face-to-face, albeit not in the same room as each other. An interview isn't always the way that a business will go. The other option is that they can go down a testing route, or they can also add it on to the interview process. So they can do interviews and testing both as a selection method. Now, a test can assess a candidate's capabilities, so medical, personality, skills. It is putting them to the test. Remember, it can be quite easy for a candidate to maybe exaggerate the truth on a CV or application form, or even in an interview, whereas testing will really showcase their abilities and put them into practice. Types of interviews that they could be done, like I said, one-to-one, so one interviewer and the candidate. A panel where there is more than one interviewer and the candidate panel. Definitely a lot more nerve-wracking for the candidate because they've got they've got more than two interviewers in front of them. Two or more, sorry. Group, more than one interviewer and a group of candidates. This can be very competitive, and I've seen this firsthand, because you're all in the room fighting for the attention of the interviewer, because you're all hoping to gain that position. Interviews, we can identify the personality and character of the applicants. We're getting to see their mannerisms. We can check their CV and application form claims. We're putting them onto the spot, bringing up parts of their CV or application form. It gives some indication of how candidates react in stressful situations. An interview can be a really nerve-wracking position to be in. Applicants can also ask questions and have the ability to showcase their interest and their passion for gaining this position. Disadvantages: the applicant can rehearse and almost put on an act and perform on the day, but actually when it comes to them doing the position, they are not the right candidate. Some people are quite good in being able to portray something about themselves, but when push comes to shove, they are not able to actually put it into practice. Interviews can be really time consuming and it can be quite expensive to carry out. If you think about it, we are taking people away from the core activities of the organisation to conduct those interviews. And with that, we can see maybe a reduction in productivity or a reduction in other activities within the organisation. So certain jobs that need done are not getting done in time because we're having to do these interviews. If we also think about it, an interview, would you, if you are stressed, perform to the best of your ability? Maybe not. You might be so nervous that you're not portraying the best side of yourself, when in fact you doing the job, you can really showcase your abilities. Types of tests that could be carried out: an aptitude test, so it shows the natural abilities and personal skills of a candidate. We're able to compare results against candidates to see who has scored the best, or who has scored the results that we are looking for. So another one is attainment, so a simple educational test that's provided for them. IQ, show applicants' mental abilities. Psychometric, so identifying what type of person they are. Are they going to fit in with our organisation? Are they the right person that we are looking for? Medical, so specific levels of fitness may be required. Heavily important if you think about positions such as within the police force or the fire brigade. Definitely need to have the medical test available to those candidates. Testing advantages: we can see the decisions that the applicant makes in certain scenarios. These scenarios may be something that they would experience if they were doing the normal job day to day. The organisation can find out the candidate's true personality and not just what they want the interviewer to know. They can see how well the candidate copes under pressure. If you think about whenever you're doing a test in school, is it always an easy process? I'm sure for many of you it's quite a daunting, nerve-wracking process, and your nerves can sometimes take over and cloud your judgment. Disadvantages: They can be time consuming to carry out, which delays a candidate starting. We may need this candidate in the job ASAP, and if we are doing testing, this is only prolonging the process. It may put applicants under too much pressure to perform, like I said, and candidates may be able to perform well in tests, but not actually doing the job. So they may be able to work to a test, but actually when the normal day-to-day jobs activities are presented to them, they're not able to carry out those duties. Once we have been able to see interviews and we're able to compare the candidates and decide on somebody, or testing where we're comparing results, we can then start to make the offer of position. And this is when the interviewer or assessor comes to an agreement that an offer is made subject to satisfactory reference checks. Reference checks, once offered the position, HR, so human resources, will use reference checks to verify information provided by candidate is correct. So for example, they'll be asked to usually provide two referees. Usually one of them would be educational based and one would be work based, to test out if actually they have done what they've said they've done on their CV or application form or during their interview. Doing a reference check, advantages of it, it provides information on attendance, attitude and suitability. References should be open and unbiased. It's not allowed for a referee to strongly agree towards a candidate or disagree towards a candidate. They've got to be quite level-headed and give a true reflection of that candidate. It allows the interviewer to do some cross-referencing, to double check to see what they've said is correct. Referees might recommend whether the candidate is suitable for the job. So usually these referees are people who are quite experienced and able to make those sorts of calls. Okay, so that concludes the teacher-led side of things on recruitment and selection. You'll notice that your teacher has uploaded an activity for you underneath the assignments tab for you to look at. All the instructions are there for you. We also have the second weekly Kahoot challenge, and your teacher should provide you with that link. So get involved with that. This week we are doing revision on finance to help us remember the 3 topics that we have explored so far. I hope you have a fantastic week. Any questions, my class, don't hesitate to get in contact with me. Other classes, your teacher is readily available for you to get in contact as well. Have a good week. Take care.